very habitable man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Moments ago, the White House told us that within the last 24 hours, more than 20,000 people were evacuated from the Kabul airport. More than 20,000 flown out in a 24-hour period. That follows a day when 10,000 were evacuated. That 20,000 number is huge. It is a gargantuan number.
It is. It's huge. It's gigantic. It's bigger than both of us, everybody. So do you think that maybe the media will lay off now? You know, I told you that we would get people out. There was no question in my mind that we would get people out. And the breathless reportage, the headlines, the trashing, the, disingenuous commentary. I mean, really, of course, it's a dangerous place. It's run by the freaking Taliban, for God's sake. And we surrendered to the Taliban when Donald Trump was the president of the United States. And you can't dictate as the loser the situation that you're going to face when you try to get the citizenry out of the failed country that you surrendered to a terrorist group. So, I got to say, I was really disgusted, and I will continue to be disgusted with the breathless, endless, smashing and crashing of the leadership of Joe Biden on this particular issue, because it's just impossible to please these people, even though, they failed to report on the fact that, Mike Pompeo, they failed to report on the fact that Donald Trump, they failed to report on the fact that Mark Esper said no to this plan, but that Pompeo, the Secretary of State, I don't think people understand when you say Mike Pompeo, he's not a general, okay? Yes, he went to West Point, and I'm sure he's very clear on how to set up the next administration for failure in a place like Afghanistan. I'm sure he knew all of the buttons to push so that Joe Biden would inherit a complete and utter, I won't say disaster, but a complete and utter challenge to get us and our Afghan allies out of Afghanistan. I'm sure they thought of everything and did it all so that Biden would be hobbled. He would be, starting from, I don't know, the -1 yard line. You know what I'm saying? They just did everything they could to hinder us, to hamper us, to, impede us, to prevent us from being successful in the evacuation. Well, too bad we have a real president. Too bad for Secretary of State, who's supposed to be engaged in diplomacy, who set us up for failure in Afghanistan. We're not failing in Afghanistan, okay? We're not. 60, what was it? The number was amazing. Oh. So 20,000 came out in the last 24 hours. So far, the number of people that we've taken out of Afghanistan, 58,700. 58,700 people in a week. In a week. Now, to put that number in perspective, 42,000 Floridians have died of COVID. So Joe Biden does a better job of getting people out of a war in Afghanistan waged by a terrorist group called the Taliban than Ron death sentence does keeping people alive in a first world country like the United States, in Florida. Okay, and here's another little number I really, really like. You know how many people Ron death sentence beat? What was his name? Gilliam? Remember? Yeah. Ron death sentence won the gubernatorial race by being the biggest goober, apparently, but by 32,000 votes. So we have seen 42,000 people die of COVID in Florida which is more voters lost than the number of voters he won with. Why are they killing their own voters? I think I have some clues now. I think I've settled on this as an explanation. You know that the conservatives, and especially Donald Trump as their leader, is such a freaking sociopath, is such a narcissist, as they like to say, which is a polite word for somebody that is literally willing to kill people out of jealousy. Out of jealousy. You know, I've said this for a really long time, that Donald Trump's theory of things seemed to be for a really, really long period of time that if I can't have it, no one else can. And it's the only explanation for why the Republican Party would be intent or content with killing their own voters. Because if they can't have them, then nobody can. And it's the only explanation that makes any sense to me. Perhaps you have a better one for why Fox News, for why the internets, for why... I mean, yes, there are charlatans out there. We've always had snake oil salesmen among us. We have these wretched guys who manage to get medical degrees who are only in it for the bucks. They're only in it for the money. They're only in it for whatever they can, create in sales online by selling snake oil. We know that, okay? We know that exists in many, many different, endeavors. We know it exists in... let's say religion. It exists in, I had a call yesterday telling me psychics weren't real, and I got very, very upset, very hurt that Dionne Warwick would lie to me for all these many years about the Psychic Friends Network. Do you know what I'm saying? But we do have snake oil salesmen among us. We just never expect them to be doctors, but they are. And they are selling the idea that an anti-parasitical, that an anti-mite, that's kind of that. We got a call yesterday from a really nice lady who followed up with an email to me, sweet one. Her name was Deidre, who told me that her doctor prescribed for her Ivermectin cream for rosacea. It is approved for in people for the treatment of rosacea because rosacea is sort of kind of believed to be caused, and of course no one knows yet. We will one day by burrowing mites. Okay? Same thing for, lice. Your kids have lice and you get the rid. There's probably ivermectin in it. I haven't looked at the label since Jessica was in grade school. But I remember the little comb and I remember the salve and I remember, shoving it all over her freaking beautiful hair to get rid of the lice. And kids pass these things around in school and stuff. So ivermectin is approved for human use, but the people in Mississippi, the people in Alabama, the people in Louisiana who refuse to get vaccinated are getting ivermectin from the feed store. Now, as you know, most drugs, I won't say all because I don't know about all drugs, but most drugs are prescribed by your weight. That's why, somebody who weighs 100 pounds isn't going to get the same milligrams as someone who weighs 225 pounds with regard to a drug. Again, not all drugs. I don't know about all drugs. But I do know that they've put out warnings. The state of Mississippi's health experts have gone on the TV saying, please don't buy your ivermectin from a feed store. This is for cows and swine. And it says right there on the label, not for human consumption, this is for swine. Your self-esteem must be in an all-time low, where you read this is for swine and you say, that's me. I mean, honestly, it says it's for a cow. That's me. So here we are, where people are anti-vax and anti-mask, but pro-ivermectin?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
This is now an extremely busy airfield. Every few minutes, new planes are coming in, and they are not just from the United States. We've seen them from the UK, Qatar, Australia, civilian aircraft. This is a truly global airlift.
Finally, it's also orderly. We watched a Qatari Air Force plane bound for Doha being loaded. No pushing, no cutting, bags searched, security with a gentle touch. Candy for the kids, highs to the camera. The Taliban are helping make it go smoothly by providing security outside the airport. But will it be done in time? Maybe. Perhaps, but it will be extremely difficult to fly out the remaining Afghans and the several thousand U.S. and foreign troops brought in to protect the evacuation in just 7 days.
So we've just left Kabul airport, and you go through the American checkpoint, and then you're handed over to what looks like another American checkpoint. You see American uniforms, you see soldiers in flak jackets, eye protection, new weapons, M4s, perfect condition. They know how to carry them. But they're not American soldiers. They're the Taliban.
And the Taliban are undisputedly in charge. They're on almost every corner in Kabul now. They weren't hostile to us or anyone we saw, as they patrol in pickups with the white Taliban flag.
So there you have it. That's what it looks like now. Now, they are a terrorist group. There's no question that the Taliban is, made up of mullahs, and they live by religious law, not the law of men, but the law that they believe their interpretation of Islam dictates to them. And it's repressive. I mean, just imagine, American evangelicals with guns. Oh, that's right. We have the American Taliban here. It's so amazing. Now, the Afghan Taliban, the Afghan Taliban says they don't want Afghans leaving the country now. They want all the skills and all the knowledge of their Afghan brethren to stay in Afghanistan. They don't want to allow them to leave. So maybe, just maybe, you should educate your girls. Maybe, just maybe, that's the answer to the question, that's plaguing you. How do we keep all the knowledge and the skills in the country? Maybe you should treat women better. This is like a government of incels. And the fact that we have a word here in America for people like this, that we know the word incels, involuntarily celibate men, misogynists, women haters who are loud and proud, like the Proud freaking Boys. You know what they're so proud about? They're proud that they're a bunch of misogynist haters of women. Oh, by the way, Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys, he got 5 months in prison for burning a Black Lives Matter flag and stealing it off of a church. So, I mean, we have an American Taliban here. There's no question about it. The problem that Afghanistan is going to have is, watching them fall apart. And they will fall apart. The Taliban can't survive when there's no, when there's no skills or knowledge left in the country. So they're stopping Afghan nationals from reaching the airport on the grounds that it's dangerous. Well, of course it's dangerous. It's being patrolled by the Taliban. They could be MAGA members in a heartbeat. They could literally. You want to see something amazing? Okay, I'm going to show you something. This is something I meant to play yesterday, but I didn't get to. But it's important for you to see how the American Taliban behaves and how the Taliban behaves. It's just so interesting that whenever the Taliban in Afghanistan run across somebody whose opinions they don't agree with, or somebody whose religious beliefs don't track with theirs, or someone who believes that women are their equals, or someone who doesn't want to commit acts of violence in service to a demagogue, the Taliban over there will actually issue a fatwa or a death threat against a person. And here in the United States, they just do it on the TV.
We are expected to see the final report from that sham audit in Arizona, sort of the biggest manifestation of the big lie about the election. And folks we've been speaking to here and across the country, Trump supporters are looking at these audits, hoping somehow that it's going to bring him back. Have a listen.
Yeah. I'm a Trump supporter. Honey, I can't wait till him get back in office. I know he won the election, and he's coming back. Can't wait.
You think he might run again in 24?
He ain't going to have to. He's already our president. God's going to put him back in there. He's going to reinstate President Trump.
I don't think there's going to be a 2024 election until we get the 2020 resolved.
There's no way at this point to overturn the 2020 election, right?
No, there's always a way. There's always a way.
There's no
Let's wait till the audits are out. There's millions of guns here.
Oh, my God.
You know, it took 11 days for them to take over Afghanistan. Wonder how many days. Just ask for a friend how many days it'd take the Patriots to take over this country. Think about it.
You don't want that to happen here,
I don't want it to happen, but if our country and our government and our Congress and Biden and them don't get their heads out of their butt, it's going to happen. I assure you, it's coming.
That man, I should point out, said he was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, but that he did not go inside the Capitol. But all that to say is, you know, the sort of lies that's still being pushed by the Pillow Man, the sort of lies that were embraced and being pushed on stage by Trump here in Alabama on Saturday night, it is still being actively watched and causing excitement and perhaps inspiration for more violence among certain segments of the Trump base.
Certain segments of the Trump base who have tons and tons of weaponry. We have millions of people here with guns, you know, threatening to overthrow their own government because God picked Donald Trump, you understand, in their religious view. God picked this orange man to be the demagogue of the United States of America, and they are willing to commit acts of violence. They've already committed an insurrection. They've already acted like the Taliban on January 6th up at the Capitol, threatening to kill legislators who were simply doing a routine job of certifying the election results in Congress on a date prescribed by the Constitution, January 6th, right? I mean, what is the difference between the Taliban with their weapons over there and the Taliban over here with their weapons, who are threatening violence, saying, you know, it only took the Taliban 11 days to overthrow Afghanistan, which is what they believe. And so how long do you think it would take to overthrow the United States? It's going to happen unless you reinstate Donald Trump, who God picked. I'm so sorry. I just don't see any difference. The outfits are just as bizarre. Did you see that outfit that man was wearing? Okay. I will say this. The Taliban of today, they have these very weird little red hats. They're very strange looking. I don't like them. But, you know, these people here with their camo and their red hats, you know, just like the Taliban wear red hats, weird ones. There's very little difference. I mean, they all hate women. They want to lord over them. I mean, what's different?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
We believe we are making enormous progress. And taking a step back, a week ago, I don't think almost anyone in this briefing room would have thought we'd be standing here today with 37,000 people already evacuated from the country.
Enormous progress. That's the phrase he just used. You will not see those words in headlines written by a news media that is committed to the debacle story. The Biden administration has made enormous progress over the last time we did this in the evacuation from Vietnam. The next time we lose a foreign war and flee that country, you will see these images again, because no one in history, no country has ever evacuated from a lost war without the kind of final images we saw in Vietnam and the final images we are seeing now in Afghanistan.
That's just the way it is. And you know, the only person that I could find in all of media who wants to explain to you that, and that was yesterday. Yesterday there was 37,000 evacuated, right? And then overnight we did another 20,000. We're up to 58,700 people out of Afghanistan, and we lost. And we lost. And people are criticizing the way that we are removing, Afghan allies and American people who want American citizens, green card holders and American passport holders. The nerve of them is just it's so bizarre. But obviously, there is there is a movement in media that obviously wants Joe Biden to fail. And then there's the other side of the story, which is, okay, well, we have to criticize the Democratic president. We have to, so that we can have some credibility if we ever get another lunatic, guy who sells America out as a Republican. Well, I'm sorry, but just report what's going on. Just say what's going on. That's it. And report that there are 58,700 people evacuated out of Afghanistan, a war that Donald Trump surrendered us to, a terrorist organization. That is what H.R. McMaster has told you. That is what Liz Cheney has told you. These are not Democrats, okay?
Our Secretary of State signed a surrender agreement to the Taliban. This collapse goes back to the capitulation agreement of 2020. I mean, the Taliban didn't defeat us. We defeated ourselves.
That's H.R. McMaster, Donald Trump's national security advisor. Here's Liz Cheney.
When President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo decided that they were going to sign a surrender agreement with the Taliban, decided they were going to begin to negotiate with the
President Trump's own national security advisor. I was going to actually play that clip for you. H.R. Haldeman.
McMaster.
McMaster. I've done that a few times. Been around this town too long, I guess. And he basically accused Secretary of State Pompeo at the time and the president, and he called it a surrender agreement.
It is.
Why do you call it a surrender
agreement? Absolutely. Because we sat down and negotiated with terrorists, because we completely excluded the Afghan government from those negotiations. We gave credibility to the Taliban. Secretary Pompeo told us that the Taliban was going to renounce al-Qaeda. They told us that the Taliban was going to fight terrorists. They forced the Afghan national government, we did, to release 5,000 prisoners. So we completely undercut the Afghan national government. We absolutely emboldened the Taliban. And we know now from public reporting that at the moment that agreement was signed, the Taliban went to members of the Afghan National Army and said, the Americans are leaving you, and you should lay down your arms when the time comes, or we'll kill you and your families. So that led directly to the catastrophe that we're seeing today.
I'm sorry, but these are the warmongers among us that are saying this. That is Liz Cheney. Her father wanted us in Afghanistan. Her father, it's so funny. Her father, as vice president of the United States, was probably president more than he was vice president of the United States. But anyway, Dick Cheney literally was such a war hog. He was such a war hawk. He was a monster, is what he was. Now, what they knew, what the Bush administration knew, and what we all knew, whether you could say it or not, I was getting the crap kicked out of me on the air because I did not want to invade Afghanistan or Iraq, for that matter, because those countries had nothing to do with 9/11. 9/11 was a Saudi Arabian terrorist attack. And now we roll out the royal carpet for the Saudis. We always did. After Osama bin Laden, a Saudi, organized this terror attack on the United States of America, okay, and had these crazy people fly airplanes into the buildings in New York and Washington, D.C., and to the Pentagon itself. And obviously they were going to hit the Capitol too, except that the people in Shanksville over Pennsylvania, remember Let's Roll? They said, okay, we have to sacrifice ourselves for the good of the American people. We have to do it. We have to take these people, we have to go with them out into, the never world. But anyway, those hijackers, they were Saudis. 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. One of them was from the UAE. I mean, for God's sake, no one on that plane was an Afghan. No one on that plane was an Iraqi. It made no sense at all. And after they decided, the Bush-Cheney administration, that they were going to invade Afghanistan, they had a battle in the mountains of Tora Bora called the Battle of Tora Bora, where they botched it on purpose, I think, to let Osama bin Laden out of Afghanistan. he went into Pakistan, obviously, in the Battle of Tora Bora, because we only guarded Tora Bora on all three sides. Not 4, 3. And that's where we found him, in Abbottabad, Pakistan, 10 years later. 10 years later. And then they conflated your anger over 9/11 somehow in your head with Iraq. That also had nothing to do with 9/11, like nothing, less than nothing. And now his daughter is sitting on the TV saying, oh no, Donald Trump surrendered us to the Taliban. They surrendered us to the terrorists. They're supposed to renounce Al-Qaeda. They did not renounce Al-Qaeda. The Haqqani network, which is Al-Qaeda, is calling the shots. It's part of the team. Baradar was released from a Pakistani prison where, you want to hear something so ironic? You can't even make this up. I mean, if you put this in a movie, people would think that it was too far of a stretch, okay? This dude, Baradar, who is going to inherit Afghanistan, okay? He is Al-Qaeda, okay? I know they say, oh, he's the Taliban. Yeah, he's the Taliban, but he's the Taliban that works with Al-Qaeda. He was, at the request of our CIA, he was captured in Pakistan and put in prison in Pakistan, where he escaped to, and was in that prison until, from like 2001 or 2 until 2018, when Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo called the Pakistani government and said, we want Baradar released. They're like, why? He's like one of the people that, will attack him. No, we want him released. Captured by the CIA. Well, now we're sitting at a negotiating table with him. Donald Trump sat at a negotiating table with him. And now the CIA that had him arrested, CIA Director William Burns, is now having secret meetings with him. With him now.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Don't mask up my 12-year-old and 16-year-old granddaughter. I will fight you to the end, and so will my family. That's not what my dad, my Pearl Harbor survivor dad, fought for.
Our governor has executive orders ensuring parents' rights to choose. So we can't, I'm not giving you not 1 inch. I'm not giving you an inch.
These parents are standing up now. This is the end of this tyranny. This is the end.
Woo, let's not protect our kids.
Now, currently in Sarasota County, 272 students and 40 staff members are positive for COVID-19, and another 192 students are quarantining. Since July 1st, 778 students have tested positive for COVID-19.
Unbelievable. Hey, let's not protect our children. We don't believe in science. Science is tyranny. Science is tyranny. Ivermectin, anybody? Anti-mask moms, anti-vax moms, anti-vax, anti-mask, pro-bovine parasite dewormer, pro-fish food, anti-mask. What? I mean, it's just, and you know what? This is where it's coming from.
We know that our FDA has in many ways failed us by not allowing for the use of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, both of which are used around the world to reduce COVID hospitalizations and deaths.
I pelted them with questions about COVID-19 and the vaccine and therapeutics, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, as well as other proactive treatments and practices were already helping COVID-19 patients all across the country.
On June 5th, Weinstein discussed the benefits of a drug called ivermectin, which can and is around the world used to treat and prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
The FDA has been tweeting since Saturday to stop, y'all. Stop taking ivermectin. It's for head lice and rosacea and mites that bore into your skin. It is not for COVID-19. It is not a preventative, and it is certainly not a cure. And if you get COVID-19, everybody, because you won't get vaccinated, there are treatments for COVID-19, although you'll have to get to a place where they can do an infusion of monoclonal antibodies, maybe steroids or other treatments. But this is so amazing. They are so much like a backward, medieval, ragtag bunch of freaks, these people. I don't want to protect. That's another thing they have in common. They want to martyr their own children in service of an ideology, a failed ideology. I mean, there's like no difference between the Taliban there and the Taliban here. They're both armed. They're both dangerous. They both want to hurt you. If you disagree with them, they will fight you. They will rip things off of you. They will throw things at you. They hate women, both of them. And they think their God is it, whatever it is. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. And now the racism and the xenophobia and everything else. Do you remember Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick the other day? We played you Dan Patrick saying, remember, this was the guy who said, oh, open up Texas, because if we have to die for the economy, if we have to die for the stock market, I'm older. I will do it for my grandchildren. He was ready to die. He was ready to die for Donald Trump's ideas on not preventing COVID. Okay. Now he's telling you, oh, you know what the real problem is? The real problem is black people. It's like the same crap as the Taliban. You know what the real problem is? It's those foreigners. It's those foreigners, right? It's black people. This is what he said.
Coming after your state because the increased COVID numbers, hospitalizations, deaths are up in Texas, and there's a direct assault on your governor's policies and your state's policies. Yeah. Very brief response.
Yeah. Well, Laura, the COVID is spreading, particularly most of the numbers are with the unvaccinated, and the Democrats like to blame Republicans on that. Well, the biggest group in most states are African Americans who have not been vaccinated. And the last time I checked, over 90% of them vote for Democrats in their major cities and major counties.
Okay. This never made any sense because 17% of the population of Texas is African American and 45% of Texans aren't vaccinated. So that math doesn't work. It didn't work. But now we have some demographics. Now we know who isn't vaccinated by demographics. We know that Democrats who voted for Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, this is how granular we can get now. 88% of those voters are vaccinated. Biden voters, 87% of those voters are vaccinated. Those are the primary voters, general election voters, people who voted for Biden in the general election. 91% of us are vaccinated. People who voted for Donald Trump in the general election, 50% of them are vaccinated. Do you see, like, there's a 41 percentage point difference? And then you go to Texas and 45% of Texans are unvaccinated. I don't think they're African Americans. And you know what else I know? I know how many what percentage of African Americans are vaccinated. And guess what that number is? 71% of African Americans are vaccinated. Dan Patrick is the Taliban. He is a lying sack of crap and will say any damn thing, no matter how much hostility it causes in his own communities, in order to save the demagogue, in service of an ideology gone wrong. Republicans who support Trump more than the Republican Party, you know how many of them are vaccinated? 46%. There's your problem, Dan. There's your problem. White evangelicals, 59% vaccinated. African Americans, 71% vaccinated. Want that number again? Okay. White evangelicals, 59% vaccinated. African Americans, 71% vaccinated. It's so easy to debunk it, and yet people hear it and they refuse to say that can't be so, that can't be right, that can't be true. No, and you know what I noticed? Okay, listen, this is really creepy. This is really, really creepy. I have more than one browser. Okay, one is Google Chrome, and the other one is Bing, Microsoft. You know that if you use Bing, you can't find half of the informative articles that I put in the homework. You can't even find them. It's really creepy. And I've noticed this because, it's these neighborhood, chat boards and, people that are in chat rooms and stuff when they're asking me for stuff. If I have my Bing browser open, and the only reason why I have my Bing browser open, and somebody could email me about this, it's a problem, okay? For my personal email, for the work email I use Gmail, but for my personal email I use Outlook. Well, for some strange reason, I changed computers, my other computer died, and if I don't select Bing as my proprietary browser, as my default browser, I can't open any links in my emails. So I have to keep Bing running on my computer to have clickable links in my personal email. But I hate that browser. I much rather use Google Chrome. It's a good browser. But I've noticed the algorithms on Bing are so right-wing. It just feeds you more and more of this trash.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Please work with your doctor. This is medical treatment. You wouldn't get your chemotherapy at a feed store. I mean, you wouldn't get treat your pneumonia with your animal's medication. It can be dangerous to get the wrong doses of medication, especially for something that's meant for a horse or a cow. So we understand the environment we live in, but it's really important if people have medical needs, go through your physician or provider.
Unbelievable. That is Dr. Thomas Dobbs, who is in charge of health, the health care for the state of Alabama, and he had to go on, Mississippi, and he had to go on the TV and tell people, don't call 1-800-PET-MEDS for Ivermectin. Okay, just don't do it. Don't go to Pet Supermarket. And then said what I said. You wouldn't get chemotherapy at PetSmart, would you? Would you? It's all part of this. Okay, so let me just explain this. Republicans in the House, okay, who are against Americans in every aspect of your life. They don't want to raise the minimum wage. They don't want their rich donors to pay more taxes at all ever. So that means that you have to make up the difference, okay? They're not for continuing the child tax credit that actually is lifting children out of poverty. They only like the fetus. They really can't stand children. In fact, they don't even want to protect them from a virus, right? They don't want them masked at school. They don't want them protected from the stupid adults that can get a vaccine but won't. They don't want to see family leave passed. They don't want to see preschool, universal pre-K. They don't want our kids educated. They don't want paid family leave. They don't want elder care to be covered under the insurance policies that we have. They don't want to expand Medicare. They don't want to lower the age of Medicare so that younger people like me can get out of the system. Lower premiums for you because I'm now part of Medicare and I'm probably going to start using a lot of health care in the next few years. You know what I'm saying? They're not interested in tackling climate change, even though Tennessee just got swept away in a rushing creek. It was a creek. It was a crick, everybody. Trace Creek It filled up with water so fast. A creek. It wasn't a river. It wasn't a marsh. It wasn't the Everglades. It wasn't the ocean. It was a creek. They got 17 inches of rain in 24 hours in Middle Tennessee, and it literally tore their town apart with water. With freaking water.
Following a generational flood, Tennessee rescue crews continue the heartbreaking search for the missing this morning. After surging floodwaters overtook residents in minutes.
That's a creek.
It looked like a river running down through there.
Damage from the deadliest flood in Middle Tennessee history extends up to 10 miles, straddling several towns.
They don't want to say climate change is real. They don't want to invest in any, anything that would offset climate change or anything that wouldn't use fossil fuels because the Koch brothers, are, financing their campaigns, right? They don't want any increase on corporate taxes. They don't want any increase on their donor class taxes, nothing. So don't tell me that they care about you or Joe Lunchbucket or the middle class or any of those things. They don't. They don't care. So there was this mad dash yesterday to get 9 moderate Democrats to be an impediment to passing the Build Back Better part of the infrastructure package. Now, you know that the $500 billion package that's just for, repairing roads and repairing bridges, that passed the Senate with bipartisan support. But there was a second part of the infrastructure package that deals with all of these things that I just told you, that deals with universal pre-K, that deals with, it's a broader budget plan. It deals with paid family leave. It deals with expanding Medicare. It deals with lowering the age for people to buy into Medicare. Medicare is not free. You still have to have a supplemental insurance plan. It doesn't cover everything, Child care, elder care, all those things are in the Build Back Better human infrastructure plan. Well, yesterday, this group called No Labels. You know who they think they're not Wall Street, okay? I know that some people think they're Wall Street. No, they're two people. It's Mark Penn. It's Mark Penn, the pollster, and his wife, Nancy Jacobson, and guys like Dick Morris. Remember Dick Morris from the Clinton triangulation toe-sucking scandal? Yeah. So those guys, Nancy Jacobson, by the way, is married to Mark Penn. They are a couple. And they started this thing called No Labels, which is an extension of the corporate Democrats, the DLC, the Democratic Leadership, campaign. It's triangulation. It's making Democrats into Republicans and promoting Republican ideas, Republican, bills, package like that. So Nancy Jacobson and Mark Penn and No Labels went to like 9 Republican Democrats who are in purple districts and convinced them that they didn't want to vote for the Biden plan, that they didn't want to vote for the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package that's got to pass the Senate through reconciliation because not nary a Republican will vote for it. And so they went and convinced them that that was the better vote for their reelection, is to not invest in the American people. And they were successful in getting these 9 Republican Democrats, these 9, they call them moderates. They're dinos, whatever you want to call them. That their best vote was a no. So Nancy Pelosi, of course, outsmarted them. Nancy Pelosi, who gave her word to Democrats who voted for Joe Biden, who Joe Biden gave his word to, that they would pass both bills at the same time in the House, so that the smaller bill wouldn't get passed and then they could just walk away and say, well, we did infrastructure. Well, these 9 Democrats were holding up everything yesterday. Everything. They were going to vote no, and they were going to take, and we can only lose, just so you could do the math, we can only lose 3 Democrats. That's how tight the majority is. We can't lose 9. We could have lost 3 and still passed it with 216 votes. Well, Nancy Pelosi decided she was going to use a procedural tactic. It's called, and of course it is, when you hear the name of it, you know, some people call it demon pass, which is a better name. But the real name of the rule is called the self-executing rule. Talk about the Taliban. Setting yourself on fire. Circular firing squad. Self-executing rule. And what the self-executing rule is a procedural measure that actually you can use to pass more than one bill at a time. You can deem a second piece of legislation as approved, as passed, without requiring a separate vote. She offered this to these 9 recalcitrant Democrats, and they took her up on it, and it just passed.
Clear. Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Masks, vaccines. Those are the best weapons we have against a virus that is killing more than 1,000 Americans every single day. Yet there are people who don't trust the vaccines, but they're willing to try any wacky, fake cure they read about online or they see in right-wing media. At least 2 people in Mississippi have been hospitalized after taking an anti-parasitic drug meant for livestock.
Jesus.
The FDA tweeting, "You are not a horse, you're not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it. You're not a horse, you're not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it." So let me get this straight. Think about this, okay? You won't get vaccinated. You won't wear a mask. You say, oh, you're worried about the FDA approval. You don't know what's in the vaccine, but you'll take a drug meant for deworming livestock? Really? You're going to trust your health and your life to rumors and misinformation? Just the latest in the hall of shame of COVID misinformation.
And I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that, too. Sounds interesting.
Get the right folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs.
Surrender to the Taliban, surrender to COVID. You know, if I can't have you, nobody else can. It just seems like that is the theory behind all of this disinformation, misinformation. And, you know, like the death cult has been organized around the idea that, you know, you have to martyr yourself for this ideology. I don't know why else, you know, he does it. I don't know why else, you know, Fox News does it. I don't know why they're willing to kill their own voters. I don't know. But I will tell you that there are some, conservative Democrats, some Democrats who have to run for re-election, which is their god. The election is their nirvana. It is their, judgment day, right? And they would rather do bad things to you than they would lose a stinking election. And these 9 Democrats in purple states were able to be bamboozled by no labels, by a group of people who have no principles whatsoever. I mean, and you know that because, look, Mark Penn and Dick Morris, they ended up helping Donald Trump when Donald Trump was president. You know, so trust me, they only care about the bottom line. They talked these 9 Democrats into believing that voting against Joe Biden was the best position they had going into 2022. And these 9 Democrats believed that they could now not vote for Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan that invests in Americans, that invests in our health, our wealth, our well-being, our education, our children. It invests in tax cuts for parents with young children. It helps alleviate, poverty in this country, child hunger in this country. They can't do it. They can't do it because their best bet was to vote against Joe Biden in a re-election scenario. And so Nancy Pelosi had to come up with a device where their votes would be registered as affirmative, but not for the $3.5 trillion bill. Only for the smaller package. That's what this self-executing rule was designed to do. It was designed to fold 2 pieces of legislation with 1 vote so they don't have to take the hard vote, which they think is hard, to invest in the American people. They think that's a hard vote. To vote for the American people, to vote for investing in us, to vote for childcare, to vote for universal preschool, to vote for paid family leave, to vote for lowering the age of Medicare. They think that their best bet was to vote against all those things, because they live in districts where the people can be bamboozled into believing that if you keep corporate taxes uber low, it will trickle down to you. I don't know. So anyway, she had to introduce the self-executing rule. Now, they tried to do it last night, and they weren't having any of it. So they had to adjourn last night really late. And they reconvened this afternoon, and they put it up for a self-executing rule vote, and it passed 220 to 212. It passed, though, and all those 9 Democrats, those, my election is the Holy Grail, and I don't think I can win by supporting the President of the United States. They voted for the rule, so that they wouldn't have to be on the record voting for the Build Back Better plan. But Nancy Pelosi is so freaking savvy. She's so smart. She understood what they were being told by pollsters and by, election, campaign advisors. And she understood that the message was so rank and so bad that she had to give them a way to vote for the smaller package and vote for the larger package without anybody realizing that they voted for the larger package. And that's what the demon pass thing is about. It's about deeming a second piece of legislation as approved on passage of the first piece of legislation. And she didn't break her word to us that both bills would pass at the same time. And Joe Biden won't break his word to us that both bills will pass at the same time. So that's what happened this afternoon. And now we have a framework for an investment, a historical investment in us, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to change Medicare and accept younger people, to create universal pre-K, to actually have paid family leave in this country so that people can go get a vaccination knowing that maybe they'll be fatigued the next day, they won't be able to work the next day, but they won't lose a day's pay the next day. Oh, there's an idea for an industrialized leader of the free world. Paid family leave. Paid child care, paid elder care. I mean, this is our Democratic majority. We have to do big things with it. Now, I will tell you, it still has to go through reconciliation in the Senate in order for it to even make it to the House. And Arizona cuckoo Kristen Sinema is saying she will not vote for it. She will not vote for it. And we need all 50 Democrats in the Senate to vote for it. And she says, oh, I'm a no. which means we have to find a Republican.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
FDA just giving full approval to Pfizer's COVID vaccine. It's the first vaccine to get that full approval, and in record time, too. That has critics asking if the process was rushed. Was it?
Americans should feel very good, even better than they did yesterday, about getting the vaccine.
Yeah, what took so long?
That is what people actually use as news. 40 seconds, first it was rushed, and 40 seconds later, what took so long? Your head just spins like a dreidel. It's unbelievable to me. And then, the other show, try hydroxychloroquine. Hey, it'll just go away. Oh, Ivermectin. Oh, get a vaccine. We need 90 million people to get vaccinated now. Now. 90 million. And these vaccines have to be spaced out, right? And Pfizer is the one that has FDA approval. So I guess the people who said, oh, well, I'll do it when it gets full FDA approval, they're going to go for the Pfizer. And I think there's 28 days in between doses for Pfizer. Moderna, I think, is 21 days, but Pfizer, I think, is 28. I could have that backwards, so you'll check, okay, with your pharmacist who's going to give you the shot. Anyway, so you get a shot, and then you have to wait 28 days or about 3 weeks, sometimes a month, right? Right? And then you get another shot, and then you have to wait 14 days for that to actually give you the full antibody protection. So we have at least another 6 weeks, and that's if everybody did it today. And they won't. They won't. They would rather go to the feed store. What? Kurt in Ohio.
Hey, Randi, thank you for taking my call. Moderna's 28 days and Pfizer's 21.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, you were talking about Ron's death sentence?
Yes.
Well, here in Ohio, Governor DeWine has a primary against Jim Renacci, or what I like to call Jim Renutty.
Oh, he is.
Who is running as the Donald Trump candidate for governor in the GOP primary next year. Mm-hmm. And he is modeling his campaign and possible governorship after Ron's death sentence.
Not surprising. They're all nutbags. They really are.
Not surprising at all. In
fact,
they
are willing to watch people die. They're willing to give people bad advice that will cause them to either suffer, get sick, have long COVID, or worst case scenario, drop dead, die from lack of oxygen.
Get this, Randi.
Yeah.
I tell the truth on him on his Twitter page and on his Facebook page. The little SOB blocks me from his social media now because I told the truth on him.
Right, because they're little babies. They're baby men. They're snowflakes. They're fragile.
I mean, I'll give Jane Timken credit. I mean, she's our Senate candidate running as the Donald Trump candidate of the Republican. I'll give Jane Timken credit. I give her hell all the time on her social media, and she still lets me stay on there. So
that's because
who's got more guts?
Well,
What's that?
I was going to say she's probably an absentee landlord. She probably, doesn't even look at it. He does.
Right.
So.
Yeah, her husband, I believe, is the head of the Timken Steel Company here in Canton, Ohio. So what's that tell you?
And what could go wrong having her vote on bills that affect her family fortune?
You mean like the one where Jim Renutty, as a congressman for my district, voted for the 2017 tax scam and allowed for people like Jane Timken to take her company down to Mexico or overseas, and instead of paying 21% in business taxes, she only had to pay 10.5%?
Yes, like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong by electing somebody whose personal family fortune is the subject of legislation with regard to taxation or with regard to permitting or with regard to, let's say, negotiating with Big Pharma to lower the price of prescription drugs. Well, let's say Big Pharma either contributes mightily to your campaign and you want to protect their bottom line. I mean, what could go wrong there? Or let's say you are a family that owns a big pharma company. What could be bad about you voting on legislation that affects your family's fortune? Wake up, people. Michael in Virginia.
Yes, you were talking about Afghanistan. I'm actually waiting to hear what the president will say. Hopefully he will stick to his deadline to get all American troops out of there by the end of the month. But you were saying that you were remarking about Bush and Cheney, but at the same time you're saying, oh, this is what happened on September 11th. We don't know what happened September 11th because we've never had a real investigation.
Yes,
it's all been controlled by Bush and Cheney. Bush and Cheney dictated what would be investigated and what would not.
No, we had an independent commission.
Did you know that Secretary of State Colin Powell, when challenged by the Taliban, what they were saying, produce bin Laden, or we're going to go into Afghanistan. And Secretary of State Colin Powell publicly said, I'll always remember, we will lay out the evidence publicly. We will do this, Taliban, and then you must give up bin Laden. He never did. There was no explanation. I asked Lawrence Wilkerson.
There was no explanation for what? For what? What are you talking about? You've conflated a whole bunch of stuff.
They said that the Taliban said, okay, you're saying that bin Laden is responsible for September 11th. Give us the evidence. Give us the proof. And again, then Secretary of State Colin Powell, on television, public, before everybody, said, yes, we will do that.
Yeah.
And then there was silence.
No, there wasn't.
There was
silence.
nothing.
No, there was something.
Yes, there was. there was Dick Cheney. There was Dick Cheney talking about Mohammed Atta.
No, there was.
Remember that?
Yeah, and who was he?
Do you remember Mohammed Atta, one of the so-called hijackers?
Do you?
And Dick Cheney said, oh, Mohammed Atta, he met with the Iraqis. It was a bold-faced lie.
What?
Everybody knew it at the time.
He was an Egyptian. I don't know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you? You're in denial because Bush and Cheney lied to us to get us into Iraq. Do you remember any of this?
Yes, but
Bush and Cheney.
But that has nothing to do with Osama bin Laden. Iraq and Osama bin Laden should never be said in the same sentence because they're not related to each other. You're conflating a whole bunch of crap in your head about different people from different parts of the world. Osama bin Laden is a Saudi. Bin Laden construction family. You remember George Bush airlifted all the bin Ladens out of this country? When we had 3 days, we had no flying at all. And during that period of no fly, the bin Ladens were given private jets and escorts out of this country back to Saudi Arabia. That had nothing to do with Iraq. Nothing at all. Zero. Nothing. Nothing at all. Mohammed Atta was an Egyptian. I don't know what you're driving at there, because that also had nothing to do with Iraq. I don't know what you're talking about when you conflate a million things like that. Oh, David in North Miami Beach.
Yeah, well, we're seeing is a couple of experiments at once, including Saudi extremists.
Okay, that's really bad. I can't understand a word you're saying. I have no idea, what that was. Anyway, here's what happened with Joe Biden today. Joe Biden was supposed to do an announcement today at noon about whether or not, the G7, the top 7 economies of the world are the G7. And the G7 and Biden, he called a meeting of the G7 today And I know that the G7 wants Biden to extend the deadline to leave Afghanistan. But Biden doesn't want to extend the deadline to leave Afghanistan. He wants to be out of there. Obviously, this is why the airlifts they're amazing. They're amazing what's going on. 20,000 in 24 hours airlifted out of a place that is involved in an ongoing terrorist takeover. It's not one life has been lost, of Americans. Anyway, he was supposed to make an announcement at noon. Then they pushed it back to 2 o'clock. And then we thought we would get his announcement at 4:30 Eastern time this afternoon. It is now 2 minutes to 5 Eastern time. No Joe Biden. Something's up. I don't know what it is. We'll know soon enough, and we'll talk it through tomorrow, okay? Whatever you do it vaccinated.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
That is a live picture of New Orleans at 6:55 in the morning local time. Monster storm Ida roared ashore yesterday as one of the most powerful hurricanes ever to strike the U.S. Gulf Coast. Landfall took place in Louisiana, where 16 years earlier to the day, Hurricane Katrina devastated the region. After hours over land, Ida was downgraded this morning to a tropical storm, but still dumping torrential rain as it moves further into the country. Ida is adding to the stress felt by hospital workers at the Ochsner Medical Center main campus in Jefferson, Louisiana. This is cell phone video shows part of the roof pulling off the building and hurtling toward a window.
Hey.
This morning, we're getting our first look at some of the damage left in Ida's wake. This is just some of the destruction in Golden Meadow, Louisiana, about an hour south of New Orleans. In New Orleans, the historic French Quarter was hit hard with significant damage, storm winds completely knocking out the city's power. In all, more than 1 million people still are without electricity this morning in Louisiana. And as Ida makes its way through Mississippi, the flooding will be a big issue there.
Well, it's a good thing that we have a real president is why it's a. You remember Katrina, which landed, 16 years ago to the day, which is kind of creepy. Bush flew over it and looked down while, 1,800 people died? Remember that? Mm-hmm. And then Maria, which was a Category 5 that hit Puerto Rico, we had a president who couldn't figure out that ships are the trucks of the sea. Remember that? He said it's surrounded by water. It was surrounded by water. You couldn't get there. You couldn't get there because it was surrounded by water. And then he finally flew there and tossed paper towels at people and withheld their aid money to the point where they didn't get their aid money till Joe Biden became a real president and released the aid money for Puerto Rico. This morning, Biden was on TV, had a meeting with FEMA, had the whole thing on television. People could hear what the rescue effort was going to be comprised of. The governors were there, the mayors were there, the presidents of the parishes affected were there, FEMA was there, the military was there. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So right now what we have is a place that is at least as humid as Florida, maybe even slightly more moist, which is hard to imagine, and maybe just as hot as hell, with about 1 million people without any electricity. 1 million people in New Orleans have no air conditioning, no electricity. They're also dealing with an enormous amount of COVID because there are a lot of anti-vaxxers there in the Deep South. And now you have this hurricane, which is, I mean, I know Ida is an old school name. You know how I know that? It's my grandma's name. It sounds like the name of a hurricane from, I'll say 1821, not 2021. Grandma. Yeah, my grandma's name was Ida. Ida and Sam. That's Loretta's parents. Why they named her Loretta? I think that they were, having fun. I don't know. But Ida could end up causing more people to lose their homes than the United States Supreme Court. And trust me, they're working on it. Now, the real president of the United States of America, Joe Biden, actually understood that the Supreme Court could probably undo what the CDC did, because the Supreme Court, under the auspices of, Squeeze friend Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, that's Squeeze friend. Remember Squeeze? Yeah, that Brett Kavanaugh said, well, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, really can't control disease by saying you shouldn't make people homeless in the middle of a pandemic. He decided that that was not their authority, and had told us that he had decided that it was not their authority when the last eviction notice, the last eviction ban ended. And Cori Bush sat on, she actually slept on the Capitol steps with a bunch of other progressive House members, trying to draw attention to the fact that 7.4 million people would be thrown out of their homes in the midst of a pandemic if somebody didn't do something. So Joe Biden said, you know what? I will do something. I will allow the CDC to extend the moratorium on evictions, but I do know that Squeeze friend Brett is going to reverse this decision, because he's going to say that the Centers for Disease Control can't prevent disease by keeping people housed in a pandemic. So Congress, it's up to you to pass some legislation. And then they all went on vacation. So now we have 7.4 million people facing eviction, courtesy of the Supreme Court, and God knows how many people are going to be left homeless in Louisiana in the midst of a COVID pandemic. What could go wrong? My poor grandma is going to be remembered this way. I mean, honestly, she does not deserve it. She was just an amazing person. And this is what her name is going to be remembered as doing to people. It's so wrong. So what is the next hurricane going to begin with a J? With a J? You're going to name it what? Don't name it Jessica. I'll come after you. I will. You have to stop messing with my family, really. But anyway, America is such a huge country that we have many, many different portions of it making people homeless. This is so fun. We have the Supreme Court making people homeless. We have a hurricane making people homeless. We have fires making people homeless. We have droughts making people homeless. I mean, it's so amazing that America, land of the free, is experiencing homelessness, man-made, homelessness made by man's climate change. Oh, yeah. You do know that this is exactly what climate change is, and this is exactly what everybody was telling you 30 years ago it would look like 30 years from then. And here we are with the Gulf literally 3 to 5 degrees warmer than it used to be. It's warmer by 3 to 5 degrees than it was at the end of the last century, at the end of the 20th century. And so now the waters in the Gulf are like 88 to 90 degrees. And that is, I would say, fuel, but it's jet fuel for a hurricane. It's literally stepping on the accelerator when the hurricane passes into the warmest waters, which are closest to the coast. That's why you see hurricanes developing in like 24 hours. They go from, it's like the Maserati of hurricanes now that we have, right? It goes from like 0 to hurricane force winds in like, less than 6 hours. It's an amazing thing. It's less than 24 hours is the truth. It's so unbelievable. And people are just going to sit there They're just going to sit there and not demand an investment in infrastructure and not recognize that global warming is man-made. And the reason why you have 1 million people with power outages is because the grid in Louisiana, the grid in southern Louisiana, it was pulverized. I mean, pulverized. That's what caused 960,000 people to be without AC in the midst of August in the deep, deep South. I mean, this is so unbelievable. They said they lost 8 transmission lines and that the grid was demolished. Catastrophic damage. That takes months.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
In moments like these, we can certainly see the power of government to respond to the needs of the people if government's prepared and if they respond. That's our job if we work together. If folks get knocked down, we're there to help you get back on your feet. The most important element, though, is coordinating all the branches of government, state, local, and federal.
Yeah, that's exactly how Trump felt about it. He couldn't figure out how to get to Puerto Rico. Remember that? Yeah, he couldn't figure, because we couldn't get trucks on the water. We couldn't truck our stuff in there, you see, because it was surrounded by water. Someone had to explain to him, Mr. President, ships are the trucks of the sea. Remember? If we respond. I can't believe an American president has to now say, if we respond to crises, if we do a whole of government response, then it takes preparation, pre-positioning, and about 20, 30,000 people standing by to repair what is a catastrophic grid torn apart. Yeah, the grid it's in shambles. That's exactly the word that was used by the Associated Press this morning describing what the Louisiana coast grid looks like. They said that utility crews mobilized Monday after a furious hurricane swamped the Louisiana coast and made a shambles of the electrical grid in the sticky late summer heat. Oh my God. You remember that movie Body Heat where like the whole movie was really sweaty? It was like William Hurt and what's her name? I love her. How could I forget her name? Oh, Kathleen, Yeah, Kathleen Turner. Yeah. Well, that was supposed to take place, I don't know, someplace really hot and humid. And guess where they did it? They did it here, right here in Lake Worth, Florida. They did it here. Yeah, because you can't beat the sticky, hot, humid weather here. Unless, of course, you're down in the Gulf Coast with no electricity. I mean, so now you have 20,000 workers have been requested. You've got 15,000 line workers helping to restore power now. But, you know, there's the flooding, and you can't get these trucks over the floods. So, I mean, you've got power outages everywhere. I mean, we went through one like that here. It was called Wilma, and it was at the end of the hurricane season, hence its name, Wilma, right? I mean, I love these throwback names. I just do. So anyway, Wilma came to Florida, and Wilma did exactly what New Orleans looks like today, just wiped out our electrical grid, wiped it out. People were here without electricity for, what, 3 weeks? I'm amazed that any of us survived it. I'm just totally amazed that anybody survived it, because it was hot, it was sticky, it was humid, people are nasty, but see, now you got to add the extra layer of attraction. Now you got to add the extra layer of the COVID in a low vaccination state. What could go wrong? Do you understand that America is literally hobbling America? Do you understand that Donald Trump literally hobbled America in every way, shape, and form that he could think of? Do you get that? You know, listen, Afghanistan, we're almost out. Tomorrow is the deadline for us leaving. I would hate to be the airman or the captain or, you know, the officers or anybody on that last flight out. But somebody's got to be the last flight. And everybody's going to hold their breath tomorrow when that last flight takes off. Although we do have anti-missile batteries there that stopped a missile attack. There was an attempt at launching 5 missiles at the Kabul airport, and our defense systems that we brought with us worked and prevented it intercepted the missiles, and it prevented it from killing more people. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. But tomorrow's the last day, and it looks as if 280 Americans are choosing to stay there. And some of the people that are of the 280 are dual citizens, meaning they hold Afghan citizenship and American citizenship, and they are choosing to stay there because they can't get, you know, their extended families out. They can't get every member of their family. They've lived in Afghanistan for a really long time. They don't want to leave, and so there will be a number, I don't know how many yet, but there will be a number of dual citizens, of Americans who work with aid work. You know, they do non-governmental organizational work. They do all kinds of things, and they don't want to leave because they say that the Afghans feel that they've been abandoned and they can't leave. They just can't leave them. They're going to stay there. They're going to help them. They're going to, you know, whatever. Then after the deadline, just so you know, after the deadline past August 31st, which is tomorrow, you have 98 countries, including the United States of America, that are announcing a joint arrangement to continue evacuating Afghan allies of ours to 98 countries, including the United States. So that's I mean, they're going to continue to issue travel documentation to designated Afghans. They have a clear expectation and a clear commitment, they say, from the Taliban, who want their money unfrozen by the United States and these allied countries. And so far, no one is releasing any of their money to them and keeping the leverage on them until every Afghan ally of ours is out of that country. See, it's called leverage, is what it is. Now, of course, Donald Trump just, he surrendered us to the Taliban. And then in his 18 months post-Taliban surrender, he did nothing. He didn't evacuate any Americans. He didn't evacuate any Afghan allies. In fact, he was an impediment to the evacuation of Afghan allies. He literally stopped the processing of visas. He left all of our equipment there, didn't evacuate any of our Humvees, MRAPs, nothing. Just left all of our crap there. And now people are dumping on Biden, who is getting our stuff out of there, got our people out of there. I mean, we've evacuated over 122,000 people as of today. As of today, making this the most successful. Well, I think this will go down as the most successful airlift under fire ever in the history of the United States of America. That's what a real president can do. That's what a real president should do. It's what a real president does do. People in this country have been without a real president for quite some time. Now, the chief negotiator for the Taliban says that they will not stop people from leaving after the August 31st deadline. And I'm telling you right now that the Taliban is going to be judged on their behavior. And one of the most important things we heard last week was, well, even after we leave, people should be free to come and go. Shouldn't they? Yes. And so now we have joined with 97 other countries and announced yesterday that we've reached an agreement with the Taliban to allow people to continue to get out of Afghanistan after the withdrawal ends, our withdrawal deadline ends. It's good.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
$50 billion is in there for resiliency, $65 billion in there to harden the grid, things that certainly would help here. And so now where Republicans are, I don't know yet, but I'm sure hoping that Republicans look around my state, see this damage and say, if there's money for resiliency, money to harden the grid, money to help sewer and water, then maybe this is something we should be for.
Oh, better late than never. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, advocating now for the passage of Joe Biden's infrastructure package. Oh, but there's money in there to harden the grid. There's money in there for resiliency. There's money in there to combat climate change. There's money in there to, oh my God, maybe we should vote for it. Better late than never. God, they're so phony. They're so fake. They're such frauds. Why are they against, doing anything on climate change? Because they are completely financed by the fossil fuel industry. Well, I shouldn't say completely. The other portion of their fundraising prowess comes from Big Pharma. So they're not interested in negotiating the price of prescription drugs with Medicare to bring the cost down. No, they don't want that because Big Pharma doesn't want that. They don't want, they weren't for Joe Biden's infrastructure package, which mitigates climate change and has like tons of money in there for fixing grids. It's too expensive. Way too expensive. Too much to ask. Now all of a sudden they're like, hey, maybe we should, come around to this. Maybe we should do something. Candace in West Virginia.
Hey, how you doing, Randy? I'm completely disgusted with his heat and everything else, but I just wanted to point out, and I hated Trump. Of course, I voted for the man, the right one, but the problem is we still got Enbridge, which is going to be, that's a Canadian company, which is the tar sands are going to be going through Minnesota, and that's the worst of the worst, and that's being allowed. Also, Exxon, just recently, Amy Goodman, because I watch her a lot, said that basically Exxon is going to Guyana, and they're going to do, I guess they found a load of natural gas, and they're going to do deep water drilling there. I mean, it just goes on and on. When is this going to stop? I mean, it's not a point where you can say, what we got a little time left. We have no time left. I've seen the change here, and I'm from Long Island, as you can hear my accent, and I've got a wildlife refuge here in West Virginia.
I was going to say, are you in an aviary or something? My God.
I miss my folks, but can't afford the taxes there. No, with 144 acres, can't do it. But with, I've seen the wildlife go down, all the bird species, the deer, the turkeys. Everything is just going out the window, and I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen to you.
Well, thank you for calling me from the aviary.
I thought the refuge was in her living room.
Well, she was probably outside in the refuge with the birds. So, yeah, I mean, we got a long way to go. And that's the whole point of the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package, is to get us off of these damn fossil fuels, to make us energy independent in a way that doesn't burn fossil fuels. That is doable. It is something that we need to do. It is something the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package would get us a long way toward. You're in West Virginia. Your senator there is Joe Manchin, who is an impediment to progress. He says it's too expensive. It's too expensive, even though it raises taxes on the corporate to take away their welfare, their free rider status. You talk about you can't live in New Jersey because the taxes are too high. I hear you. I get you. I don't live in New York for the same reason. I can't afford to pay the taxes in New York, let alone the fact that a square foot is like $2,000 now. So I can't live there either. But the idea that this infrastructure package, and you're calling me from West Virginia as a relocated Long Islander, which I totally get. That's what the $3.5 trillion is for. It's to get us on this road to renewables. It's to get us away from, deep water drilling. It's to get us away from fracking. It's to get us away from fossil fuels, natural gas, coal, for God's sake. Donald Trump was such a freaking liar. He played upon those people that live in your area who are, for the most part, good people, but they are literally, dying of despair, deaths of despair, because he lied to them about, we dig coal and coal's going to make a comeback and Murray Energy is going to hire you all back. And they went bankrupt, right? I mean, it's just, but what could you replace those jobs with? You could replace those jobs with wind turbine maintenance jobs. You could, create jobs building wind turbines. You could create jobs building battery plants. You could create all kinds of jobs. And that really would go a long way to helping Appalachia, which, I've lived there too. And it's one of the most beautiful parts of America. It's just gorgeous, really. It's the Blue Ridge Mountain. I have to tell you, it's magnificent. And then what did they do? They went and started cutting the tops off their freaking mountains. Mountaintop mining. I mean, for a dead and dying industry. So we have a long way to go, no doubt about it. But that's what this first, you have the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, and now it's being followed on with a $3.5 trillion package. That package has in it all kinds of remediation for climate change. It's a clean energy transitional bill. And the United States has to make that transition if we're going to get anywhere near the goal that Biden set to cut the nation's emissions by 30%. I think it's 50% by the end of this decade. Now, we can do it, but it does take an investment in America, an investment in Americans, an investment in job creation for jobs of the future. I totally believe in this, but you're in West Virginia. If I had that zip code, I would be on the phone calling Joe Manchin right now and let him know it is not too expensive. What's too expensive is dying. John in Lake Tahoe.
Hey, it's smoky as all anything.
I was going to say, I saw pictures out of Lake Tahoe this morning. Your sky is like orangey yellow.
Oh, the air quality is going to kill us. I mean, it's literally you're breathing ash.
Yeah.
And there's $1 million homes of these global warming deniers that are finally going to get it through their thick heads that it can hit home here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's storming down the hill here. We're all in absolute panic. You can't get out of Lake Tahoe or into Lake Tahoe on a weekday in off-season because it's so bad that there's only one 2-lane road. So we're stuck here.
Yeah.
And, I'm down the hill in Silver City and volunteering to help people out. I've even gone up to the hills with my shovels and my axes to help fight the thing. They're sending me back because it's just out of control here. Yeah. What is it going to take to get people to accept that there's global warming? I mean, everywhere else in the world, no matter what size of aisle you're on, they accept it and they're doing things about it. We can't even accept that it's real here.
I know. Well, that's the poorly educated. Thank you, poorly educated.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
We have to start making changes now, reverse the trend back to normalcy, back before March 2020. And what we're seeing now is people were scared. We were kind of unsure what this was all about. We were being fed stuff from the top saying, hey, this is super dangerous. And, we were all kind of unsure. I mean, rightly so. But the science is out there and is saying otherwise, that this is perfectly fine to live with. It's deadly to certain people, but we never in the history of this country we've locked down healthy people with the sick.
Okay, everybody meet Caleb Wallace, an anti-vaxxer. He's dead. He died of COVID after being in the hospital with COVID for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks. You know what that hospital bill should look like? That's like $500,000 worth of a hospital bill. And you know what's really crazy? People who have COVID because they're unvaccinated get sick enough to be on ventilators for 3 weeks, for a month. They are literally taking up bed space on a ventilator in a medically induced coma until they die. until they die, leaving behind hospital bills, like mega bills. This is crazy. This is the poorly educated that have had their way in America for a really stinking long time, all through the Tea Party phase of our governance. Remember that? All through the Trump phase of our governance. Remember that? And now they're elected. Now they're literally serving in Congress, being impediments to everything from science to getting ourselves, in order on global warming, on climate change mitigation, on just any issue that you could care about that has to do with living, they're against. But they're pro-life, They're pro-life. Unless, of course, they want you to get the death penalty, then they're not pro-life. Or unless, of course, you're a child and you don't have food, then you could die too. Or unless, of course, there's a free vaccine that you could take to prevent the spread of a deadly pandemic, then they're not so pro-life. Oh, my God, this is the poorly educated and their effect on a governance that is made up of the citizenry. This is the problem with self-governance and a race to the bottom in education, which the Republicans championed for years and years and years. To the point where even now, if you can't remember their all-out assault on public education, if you can't remember that, and what the Betsy DeVosses of the world wanted for your children, which was them that's got shall get and them that's not shall lose, meaning if you could pay for private school, yay you, and if you couldn't, well, you were going to languish in a freaking public school that had 50 kids in a classroom and no history lesson, like no civics class, no history, no, not even Schoolhouse Rock. Oh no, we were going to start mixing in, evolution was going to go out the door and Bible study was going to come in the door. What could go wrong? What could go wrong with believing Jesus heals without using science as a tool? Didn't they bring frankincense and myrrh? Wasn't that like medicinal? Didn't that suggest to you that medicine was a good thing at the beginning? Oh, I don't know. I just don't know. All I can tell you is that we are at an impasse because those crazy, lunatic, fringy people that were part of the Tea Party, which was totally sponsored by fossil fuel, the fossil fuel industry. It was the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity and Dick Armey and Freedom Works and all these people that were out to dumb down the American people in order to spoon feed them crap which would allow them to vote against their own best interests, which does include taking a deep breath of fresh air. And they did it methodically. They did it on purpose. And all these Republicans that they elevated to, like ever since Sarah Palin, that they elevated, that was like a learning moment where they realized Americans just like somebody that, speaks crazy. They think it's entertaining. And if you entertain them, this is America. You could do anything you want. You could do anything you want. You can literally take away every safety net. You could literally take away a fresh breath of clean air, and they will root for you. And this has been like the slouching toward Gomorrah thing that we were talking about 20 years ago. And they've been doing it ever since, literally doing it ever. So now we've got Lake Tahoe, Emerald Bay. It's surrounded in smoke from the Caldor fire. You got your Dixie fire over here, 764,000 acres, 48% contained. You got, oh my God, they give them all names. Chaparral fire, that's another one. That's in Riverside County, San Diego County, 10% contained. 10% contained as of yesterday. That thing's burned 41,000 Californians. It's so amazing. The word of the day, I thought it would be hunker, because that had to be the most overused word this weekend. I know it because I'm a South Floridian, and whenever a hurricane comes away, hunker down, everybody, hunker down. Time for evacuation has passed, so now you have to hunker down. Oh my God, I hate that word. Whenever I hear the word hunker down, whenever I hear hunker, I know it's bad, it's not good, it's coming, it's too late, can't get out, you're stuck, whatever. But no, the word of the day should be evacuate. Everybody's evacuating. You got people in the Chaparral fire, in San Diego and Riverside counties, 41,000 evacuating. Afghanistan, I think we may have, I'm not sure, but I just saw three C-17 Globemasters. I just saw 3 of them take off from Kabul airport. I think those, it's August 31st in Afghanistan right now. It is. No, it's August 30th here, but over there, they're 8 or 9 hours ahead. So it's already August 31st there. I think maybe we just flew our last 3 evacuation flights out of Kabul airport. I don't know. I know Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, he's going to talk at 5 o'clock, and we'll be out. So turn on the TV at 5 o'clock to see whether or not we're out. I think we're out. I think that was it, which would be great because that means we got our last 3 flights in the air without any contretemps in a evacuation. This is the word of the day. Then you got New Orleans, they're evacuated. Then you got Plaquemines Parish, they're evacuated. Then you got St. Tammany, they're evacuated. You got Lake Tahoe has to evacuate now because you can't breathe in Lake Tahoe. Sacramento, you have the Caldor fire. This thing's been on fire for 2 weeks now. And nobody in this country is learning anything if they're part of the death cult. You know how many new cases of COVID a day we're clocking as of today? Do you know how many? Do you have any idea? 155,000 new cases a day. 155,000. We haven't seen numbers like that since last year. The European Union just banned Americans from traveling there. We're not on the safe country list anymore. Can't evacuate now, everybody. Can't evacuate now. Hunker down. Hunker. Sandra in California.
Yes. Is this Randi?
Yes.
Randy, I was wondering if a caller could call our industrial military complex and have our airplanes fill their bellies with borate, do our I'm kind of nervous right now. Anyway, our drones, put some water buckets on them, and for crying out loud, put these stinking fires out. I mean, it could be done. I mean, war machines, we're in a war with fires. So anyway, that's about all I had to say, and really enjoy your program. And I've been watching Free Speech TV for since 1997. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, oh no, thank you. Be safe, stay well. I mean, it is an amazing thing. You got droughts over here, floods over there, fires over here, and everybody has to evacuate all the time, everywhere. What happens when there's no place to evacuate to? You understand? This is what we're staring at. This is what we're looking at. We have a real president now. We don't have a real Senate. We don't have a real Congress. We have razor-thin majorities in Congress. And the people who are not part of our razor-thin majority are impediments to progress. Now, it's 2021. You know what that means? It means we get to vote next year. It does. I would suggest enough already of the impediments.
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I'm going to beg for the help of our community to prevent. I'm a physician and I'm trying to help our community here. Our hospitals are full and we're asking for help.
You're talking to the fake news, they will twist whatever you're saying. I wasn't having a conversation with you.
This is amazing. I'm here to talk to you as your community member.
We lost 12 servicemen in Afghanistan. That is a lot more important than this, and you know it.
Okay.
Ma'am, why are you here today? Why are you here today?
Because I have children and grandchildren that I want to live free. Breathing in poison. And this is all smoke and mirrors. This is tyranny.
What do you mean by medical tyranny?
Excuse me, I gotta go. We don't have rights anymore. That's what it means.
We literally have come up with an incredibly safe and efficacious vaccine, and people don't want to accept it. There's little to no side effects. It's very effective, and people are behind me screaming about how it's tyranny and it's communism and it's silly is what it is. I mean, literally, they've got a doctor here telling them how safe it is. I know people feel very strongly about their freedom and they're trying to advocate for that, but at the end of the day, we're trying to take care of our community. We are at the breaking point and we do not have that luxury right now, and so we all need to pull together and try and be safe. So if that means having our children wear masks, my kids don't mind doing something that's good for their neighbors, and I'm going to ask the same of them.
Oh, yeah. Whatever happened to am I my brother's keeper? Whatever happened to do unto others as you would have done unto you? Do you know, I don't even understand. She was a Vanderbilt University hospital physician trying to reason with a bunch of people who, freedom, I want my child to live free. You know, freedom isn't free, as you know. And she invokes the 13 dead service members who were children. They were children. They were, 20 years old, the 13 that died, the Marines. I mean, I looked at those faces and I realized, oh, my God, there, but for the grace of God go I, because that's how old I was, right? And those are the people that we always ask to die for your freedom, and they do. We do. Because freedom isn't free. And the price you are being asked to pay is wearing a stupid piece of paper on your face to keep your droplets to yourself and not spread a highly contagious respiratory virus, or better yet, get vaccinated. Just take a vaccine, a safe and effective vaccine. I have to tell you, this is just so unbelievable. This is the Tennessee governor, Bill Lee, earlier in the pandemic and then now.
I don't think any kid ought to wear a mask. Why? If you want to follow the science, you wouldn't have kids in a school wearing masks when kids do not get sick from COVID. Kids do not get sick from COVID. Kids do not get sick from COVID. That's science.
Hey, we're here today because we're very concerned about what's happening in our state. The trajectory of this pandemic, of course it matters to us, every child that gets sick, every child that's lost.
Always too late. Always just $1 short and late to the game. Always, always, because they will literally do what their donors want done. And if their donors don't want clean energy, if their donors don't want Americans to persevere, or understand that there's a pandemic because their donors have a vested interest in having an open economy and whoever dies, then that is what they're for. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. This is an amazing thing. It is literally the most stunning. You know, the guy who is advising our governor, Ron DeSantis, here in Florida, about the use of Ivermectin and stuff like that. You know who's telling him these things? The doctor. The doctor is a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist. Oh my God. Now, I always believed that, there was something wrong with DeSantis. He could probably benefit from a psychiatrist, but I didn't think the psychiatrist was going to be giving him advice on virus, on things that he should be consulting, a virologist on. At least talk to a respiratory therapist, somebody. I mean, it's so amazing. And I have to show you this. This is a bunch of QAnon freaks talking to a pastor, telling the pastor that we know that the people who have died from COVID are still alive. We know that.
Many you think are dead are alive, and many you think are alive are gone, are dead.
Are you talking literally?
Literally, people we think are dead are actually still alive. Literally, people we think are alive and kicking with us, famous people even, have already died.
Yes. And there's more of the former. There is more. It's going to be a pleasant shock and reveal because there are people that been, that we assumed weren't here. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I'll just say that for now.
Yeah.
And I haven't, I'm looking at some of my lines I write. Nothing is as it seems. So just remember, and that's why it's been called the Great Awakening. We're going to find out, again, we've been a little bit asleep. We're going to find out how things really are. But here's something else the Lord said. This present story that we're living out, this present reality having to do with Trump, the elections, what our nation is going through, it is not over. This story is not over until it's good.
They're psychos. They're psychos who talk to psychos, telling them dead people who have passed on from they're alive, and live people are actually dead, and the election isn't over, and God won't let it be over until we get our way, until we get our wish. And our wish is that Donald Trump is president again, and that all the dead people from COVID are really alive and all the alive people are really dead. This is some sick, it's like mass hysteria. I swear to God, I've never seen so many insane people all at once with access to media. I mean, I kind of understand that there always been people that, in our society that will take snake oil, that will believe in healing, with hands on and no medicine, that would actually sacrifice their children to a religion that says you don't treat your children when they're sick, you don't ease their suffering with medicine, you just pray about it. I get that there's always been that, but I've never seen them have so much access to so much media ever before, and it's freaking dangerous. It's lunatic, fringe, mass madness, you maniacs, you. David in Miami.
Randy?
Yes?
Randy, Your Majesty.
Yes, my supplicant.
Hi. Yes, $1 trillion? Fareed Zakaria was talking about that on CNN back in 2010. So now you add interest and further damage. Yeah, $3.5 trillion is light. Someone argued 9 to 10 trillion could be argued, especially if you factor in all the unfunded pensions and all the expenses people cannot cover because their wages are up. Their wages are flat and expenses are up. So yeah, $3.5 trillion, that's easy if you ran the math.
I agree with you. And so, like I said, stop voting, for impediments to progress. Stop, voting for people who are late to the game and always show up $1 short. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. These America First people don't want America to be the investment. I don't know what that's about. I don't know how they hold these two thoughts in their head. They'll scream at me, America first, America first. And I say, okay, so you're for the $3.5 trillion investment in America first. No, I'm not. I'm not for that. Well, how are you not for that?
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I believe that mandating vaccines for children to appear in school is a good idea. And remember, Jake, this is not something new. We have mandates in many places in schools, particularly public schools, that if in fact you want a child to come in, we've done this for decades and decades, requiring polio, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis. So this would not be something new, requiring vaccinations for children to come to school.
Right. Eric in Kansas?
Yeah.
Hi. You wanna turn your stuff down so that you're not annoying everybody?
Yeah, I'm
right.
trying to do that right now. Yes, does some kind of interference feedback or something, doesn't it? I'm here.
Me too.
Okay, so is this Randy?
Yes.
Okay, so just a few minutes ago, I heard you say on the TV that you're concerned about the governor of Florida. I guess you live in Florida. I don't know.
Yes.
Taking his COVID advice from a psychiatrist.
Yes.
And you're saying, well, maybe he should take advice from a virologist, which might be a valid statement there, because a virologist. And then you went on to say a respiratory therapist.
Yeah, maybe.
Why?
Because respiratory therapists see up close what COVID does to somebody's lungs, and they have to intubate that person. They have to turn that person. They have to prone that person. They have to suction out their lungs. So maybe he should talk to them.
The idea that you were putting out there is that he's just talking to a psychiatrist.
Right.
But don't you know that a psychiatrist is first a medical doctor before they just specialize in psychiatry and disease? And
so can a psychiatrist, do surgery? Can they intubate you?
Yes, they can.
No, they can't.
They are medical doctors.
If a psychiatrist is not a surgeon, a psychiatrist is not a surgeon.
Not all doctors.
That's right. Now you're getting your own idea.
Not all doctors are surgeons.
That's right.
But
now you get your own idea. So a psychiatrist should not be giving advice on a virus to a governor. A psychiatrist should, because he's not a virologist, not an epidemiologist.
He's not a virologist.
He's not an infectious disease.
I agree with you on that
He's
point.
not an infectious disease.
Maybe a virologist would be good.
It's not.
But a respiratory therapist is a master's degree.
You've lost your mind. Do you understand that? You've lost your mind.
I'm what?
You've lost your mind. That you don't.
I have not lost my mind. I'm just saying.
You have no.
You're putting out there as if the governor is taking advice from a car mechanic. It might as well be taking advice from a car mechanic as a psychiatrist.
That's right.
But a psychiatrist is either an MD, medical doctor, or a DO, a doctor of osteopathy. Before they can become a psychiatrist, they have to be a medical doctor first. And a medical doctor would be much more able to give advice than a respiratory therapist.
Eric.
What?
We're in the middle of a pandemic. We have over 630,000 dead people because of a virus. And the governor of Florida is choosing to take advice about Ivermectin from a psychiatrist. And you don't have a problem with that, which means you've lost your mind, and you need to talk to a psychiatrist about how twisted you've allowed your thinking process to go astray because you're pro-Trump, you're pro-mini-me, you're pro-Republican. In the middle of a pandemic, wouldn't you want the governor to be taking advice from somebody who understands respiratory virus issues? Wouldn't you, at the very minimum, a respiratory therapist would be a better pick than a psychiatrist who is recommending Ivermectin, which is for roundworms. It's for roundworms and parasites, not for any communicable disease known as a respiratory virus. What is wrong with you? Why have you gone so off the rails so that you will defend the governor of a state that is in the middle of no oxygen, in the middle of no room at the ICU, no room at the hospital, no beds, nursing shortages? You prefer the governor to take advice from a psychiatrist over anybody who has firsthand experience tending to these patients. The bare minimum would be a respiratory therapist. The bare minimum would be to ask a respiratory therapist if ivermectin has any effect on a virus, because he or she will tell you Do you know how many patients have come through here that said they were taking vitamin C and zinc and ivermectin and ended up on respirators? That guy Caleb Wallace that I just played you, he was taking ivermectin and he ended up in the hospital on a vent, tended to by a respiratory therapist, for 3 weeks, and then he died. This is a crazy man who has some presence on the Alex Jones Show, talking about another guy named Robert Steele who appears on the Alex Jones Show, anti-vaxxer, okay, dead.
Open your eyes. Don't take my word for it. Do the research, as I have done. He was doing well until they put him on remdesivir. So Aaron says, this is the trend. How is he doing right now? This immediately resulted in his oxygen levels dropping, and they immediately began shaming the family to force him onto a ventilator. And Aaron comments, this is all Florida is offering. Of course, they're trying to make Florida look bad. Why? Why? Because DeSantis is not going along with the agenda. So they are targeting Florida.
You're a sick freak. They're so sick, these people. They're so twisted. His friend just died. His friend, Robert Steele, died on a ventilator from COVID. He was on a ventilator for a month. A month. And they're sitting there with access to media telling you that some nebulous force is trying to make Florida look bad. No one's trying to make anybody look bad. What people are trying to do is get people vaccinated so they don't have to end up on a ventilator. Florida looks bad because Florida is bad. It is eaten up with COVID and death. It's like, I swear to God, it's like I turn on the news every day. It's like week 3 of the apocalypse. Fires over here and evacuation over there and hurricanes over here and dead Marines over there. And
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The highest number of new COVID cases right now are in Florida and Texas, where 2 Republican governors have banned mask mandates in schools and other places. Do you think that Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott are making a mistake banning individual institutions, school districts, from imposing mask mandates?
You know, I'm kind of reluctant to give governors advice about how they ought to carry out their responsibilities during the pandemic. But I do think it's important to remember that 90% of the people in the hospitals are unvaccinated. So the answer to this is get vaccinated. If we could keep saying that over and over and over again, I think that's the key to this. This is a crisis among unvaccinated Americans who seem to be reluctant to believe that vaccination works. It does.
Why is he reluctant to talk to governors when this is an issue of national security? It has everything to do with our economic abilities. It has everything to do with our ability to be mobile, to move around freely. Why in the freak would Mitch McConnell go, well, I don't want to tell, because they're Republican governors. And they're making all the deadliest, most evil decisions based on every time they get on Twitter or the TV or any of their, radio hosts shows, and they tell Americans, no, we're a free country and freedom is free. It's free. You don't have to do anything to preserve freedom. You don't have to do anything to preserve health and wealth and the general welfare of the people. You don't have to even be a community member. You can be an individual who spreads COVID to children, and every time they do it, the donations go up. Every time they say something wackadoo, every time they say something crazy, they recommend Ivermectin based on a psychiatrist's recommendation, which is pure evil, okay? Because Ivermectin will not prevent, nor will it stop the progression, the replication of the COVID, of SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus. It will not. So it's just evil to recommend it. It's absolutely for money, because that's what people want to hear, and he knows it. And he knows it. And people are literally dying. And the hospitals are inundated. You have physicians coming out and trying to talk sense to people who have been brainwashed by these crazy Republicans who hold positions of power. Oh, it's okay that he gets his Ivermectin advice from a psychiatrist because a psychiatrist is an MD. Okay, well, the next time you need chemotherapy, go ahead and visit a psychiatrist's office. There. Go do that. I'm sure you'll be in good hands. I'm sure your psychiatrist knows everything about how to fight cancer. I mean, why go to an oncologist? Why go to somebody who specializes in viruses, like an epidemiologist or a virologist or an infectious disease, a communicable disease expert? Oh, why do that when you could talk to, Ron DeSantis' friend? You know why he was talking to psychiatrist, Mr. Kansas, Eric? Eric, do you know why? He wanted validation that wearing masks is abusive. That's what he wanted. He wanted the psychiatrist to get on a stage to tell the parents of Florida that putting a mask on your children who are ineligible to be vaccinated with adults who are teaching class who refuse to be vaccinated is child abuse. That's why he talked to the psychiatrist. And he said, well, what can I recommend? And he said, tell him to take Ivermectin, which is evil. Dr. John Sinnott, who is the chairman of internal medicine at the University of South Florida's Morsani College of Medicine, said any doctor pushing Ivermectin to treat COVID is evil. But you want to tell me that I'm operating at a deficit? Okay, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. That you shouldn't be taking Ivermectin advice from a psychiatrist, because that psychiatrist will actually say out loud that putting masks on children, which we've done since 1918 in the great Spanish flu pandemic, is child abuse. Okay, all right then. Sean in South Carolina.
Yeah, I just want to say you're great and you know what you're talking about.
Well, it's not that I know, it's that I read.
Yeah, because I had an aunt. She just died from the COVID, but, the doctor said they got her over the COVID, but that stuff had did so much damage to her lungs, they couldn't do no more for her.
That's sad. I'm sorry.
But, yeah, you're a wonderful person. You know what you're talking about.
The only reason why I know what I'm talking about is because I read, and everyone can do it. That's the dirty little secret, Sean. Everyone can do what I do. There's no...
Oh, yeah, I believe you. I believe you.
So I have faith in everybody, okay, that will read. I have faith in people who say, I'm going to get a newspaper. I'm going to subscribe to USA Today, or I'm going to subscribe to the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. I don't care. If you want to know what you're talking about, step one, read as much as you can stand. Take it in the bathroom, start reading there. But that's the only way that I can orient myself in this world enough to make complicated things simple enough, and anyone can do it. Anyone. You don't have to. I have no college degree. You know that. Instead of going to college, I joined the military. Hello. That would be me. I remember that day my mother said, are you a lesbian or a hooah? And I pointed to my sister. I said, well, she's the lesbian. I must be the hoa. So that's me. But I was curious. I wanted to understand the world around me. And I couldn't afford an education, okay? It wasn't in my cards. My dad was kind of old-fashioned. He was a good man, but he said stuff like, your sister is pretty and she's not very bright. She's going to marry well. Well, she married Linda. But you're not so pretty and you're very smart. You better find a career. He thought he was being practical. He thought he was being, a giving God. He thought he was telling me this, the key to life for me. So I signed up for the military. But honestly, man, I mean, this is the 21st century. And yes, anyone can do it. Anyone can know where they are in this world. And everyone can figure it out. Everyone can, orient themselves, make the right decisions most of the time. But information is what it takes. Information is the coin of the realm. When people go to invest their money, when you see these millionaires and billionaires and it's not because they went to college. No, it's because they have information. Sometimes dirty information, sometimes inside information, sometimes ill-gotten information, but they have it. They have information.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, everybody, this just in.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans. The last C-17 lifted off from Hamid Karzai International Airport on August 30th, this afternoon, at 3:29 p.m. East Coast time. And the last manned aircraft is now clearing the airspace above Afghanistan.
Wow. War is over. I sort of suspected that when I saw all those C-17s. They just one after the other. They all left Hamid Karzai International, HKIA. And I just thought, that looks like the end. So, yes, it was. It was the end. We're done. So, here's what I know. I know that about 280 Americans wanted to stay. They didn't. I don't know if they're dual. We'll find out more about them. I don't know if all of them were what we call dual citizens, meaning they hold citizenship in Afghanistan and the United States, or if some of the Americans were American citizens who chose to stay there because they didn't want the Afghans to believe that all of America abandoned them. I also know that the ability for people to leave continues even now that we're not running this evacuation out of HKIA, and that we're done, thank God, and that, listen, these 13 Marines, one Navy corpsman, one guy from the Army, these babies that died, and they are babies. They were like 20 years old. I think one guy was 30. Woohoo! But their lives were so fresh and new. Those 13 literally saved tens of thousands of others. Tens of thousands. About 125, 122. We'll get a final number. I'm sure when Tony Blinken gives his briefing at 5 o'clock, we'll learn exactly, what the situation is. But I can also tell you that I was just listening in during the commercial break to General McKenzie over there, and he told the very first question was my question. The very first question was, what did we do about the equipment that was left behind? And he said that we've demilitarized it, meaning it's inoperable. And that went for 73 planes. That went for MRAPs, the up-armored Humvees, also the Humvees. All the crap that Trump just left there in the 18 months after he surrendered us to the Taliban has all been demilitarized, which I take to mean destroyed and made unusable by the Taliban. So here you have a real president who evacuated 6,000, just about 6,000 Americans, about 120,000 Afghan allies. In 2 weeks, we lost 13 Marines who saved all those lives by being there. In one of the most incredible airlifts I have ever heard of or seen anywhere by anyone, under fire, to end a war where we lost because the previous president had surrendered. And in the 18 months of his surrender period of his presidency, did absolutely nothing to get Americans out, did absolutely nothing to get Afghan allies out, and did absolutely nothing to keep Humvees and up-armored vehicles and 73 airplanes and anti-missile systems, did nothing to get those things out of the hands of the Taliban. I would say everybody needs to send a great big thank you, however you communicate, however you do it, to the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, who has been steady, who has been tough, and who has managed to do something just awe-inspiring. And don't think that he didn't go to the they call it a dignified transfer, when your body is taken from a cargo plane and put into an American vehicle on the tarmac at Dover for proper burial. Don't think that he wasn't there. He was.
A solemn, heartbreaking day at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Sunday, President Biden attending the dignified transfer of the flag-draped remains of 13 U.S. service members killed in the suicide attack at Kabul airport while helping evacuate more than 100,000 Afghan allies and American citizens. The fallen include 11 Marines, a Navy hospital corpsman, and an Army soldier, all of them so young. The country pausing to mourn to honor their sacrifice. Marine Lance Corporal David Espinoza, just 20 years old. Marine Sergeant Nicole G., 23 years old. Days before her death, she was featured in this photo, cradling an Afghan baby at the Kabul airport, writing on Instagram, "I love my job." Marine Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover from Salt Lake City, at 31, the oldest, his father calling him one heck of a leader. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Noss, 23, Marine Corporal Hunter Lopez, 22. Marine Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, 20, of Jackson, Wyoming, was just weeks away from becoming a father. Marine Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, 20. Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Nikowe, 20, from Norco, California, his father saying he did not hesitate to be called to duty. Marine Corporal Dagan William Tyler Page, 23, Marine Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo, 25, Marine Corporal Umberto Sanchez, 22, Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, 20. Navy Corpsman Maxton Soviak, 22, his father told a reporter that in the last FaceTime with their son, his mother told him to be safe. He said, "Don't worry, Mom. My guys got me. They won't let anything happen to me." She now realizes that they all just went together.
Wow. Children. All children. Women can't serve with men. Women can't serve with men. You remember when the right-wing radio lunatics were telling you that, we couldn't serve alongside the men, we couldn't give our lives for our country alongside the men because something about being in a foxhole during that time of the month? You remember that conversation? F them. Why are you so willing to listen to men on the radio and women on the TV who get it wrong all the time? All the time. About everything. This war in Afghanistan, truth be told, no one talked about it. It was the forgotten war. It was the longest war. No one talked about it. No one cared about it. No one did a damn thing. And now all of a sudden, everybody's all critical of Joe Biden, who inherited from the president previously, who did this on purpose, a surrender to the Taliban, our enemy, and an 18-month period of time where Donald Trump was the president of the United States and didn't lift a finger to evacuate any American, to evacuate any of our allies, to evacuate any of our equipment, missile defense systems, MRAPs, Humvees, airplanes, nothing. Didn't do a jack crap thing. But Biden ends it, and yes, it cost us 13 American lives. And the same people who told you we had to go there in the first place, the same people who told you we had to stay there, the same people that told you we needed to invade an unarmed nation called Iraq because either you were with them or you were with the terrorists, also told you women can't serve next to men. Women can't do this job. And now they're telling you to take Ivermectin and forego a vaccine in the middle of a pandemic, and that investing in America with $3.5 lousy trillion, which is just about what we spent in Afghanistan, is too expensive. Don't you ever get tired of giving your time and attention to people who are always wrong, always, about everything. It takes 2 minutes to tell the truth, and it takes a lifetime to lie, and that's why they do it. Tune in tomorrow for another, episode. This is not episodic TV. This is not White Lotus. This is not where you could sit there and go, look at those entitled people. Look at them. No, you don't get to do that here. This is people literally die because they're so wrong so often. That's why I keep on saying smarten up, and anyone can do it. Anyone. Everyone can get smart. Everyone can orient themselves. Everyone can learn what to do right now to help yourself. Everyone. So do it.